yes, so we have Tom Warrender here today, who is a commercial property solicitor, and just going to ask you a few questions about your career, how it's gone and how you see the area and how you see people sort of fitting into the area and making it, a good career move for them. So first off, if you can just give me like a potted history really of your career path to date, what you've done and how you got to where you are today.
Sure, of course. So I'm Tom Warrender. I'm an equity partner and a board member at Wilson Brown Solicitors. And I decided, or at least mentioned, a potential career in law to my parents probably when I was about 13, when I saw something on TV that was probably a criminal law drama. And it's funny because I remember when I started at uni, one of the first questions the lecturer said was, "Oh, if there's anyone here because they watched Ally McBeal, you can leave now." It wasn't quite Ally McBeal, but it was TV, and I actually think that's all right as a way to discover law. But I also think, a lot of children my age said they wanted to be a footballer. I said that too, and parents would naturally. There are a few that make it, but naturally parents go, "Yes, okay, but what do you really want to do?"
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the career in law, they could have easily said that, because they could have said, "Look, okay, that's lovely, but no one in the family works in law. We don't know anyone. We've got no contacts, and no one in the family's been to university. So that's a lovely idea, but don't do it." But they didn't do that. They heard the word lawyer and just thought, "Oh, brilliant. That sounds good. Do that." And I never really looked back. It was just kind of that moment that that's what I'm going to do. And that was at about 13. And then as I got closer to GCSEs, it was a question of, okay, what A levels do I want to do? And I chose A level law, and I had to leave the school I was at to go to a college because the school didn't offer it. Okay. And I remember the head at the time saying, "You don't have to leave. You don't have to do A level law to do the degree." And I was quite focused on it, that I was, in my head, I didn't want to waste 3 years at uni doing a subject that I might not like. So I said, no, I need to do the A level first. So I did that. And I did my degree in my LPC, and then I secured a training contract. And I think every step of the way for me was just finding out off my own back. I'd said to my parents what I want to do, and they were very supportive, but it was very much, off you go and do it. So all of the research into how do I do it, what do I need to do, how do I get experience, was all off my own back. And I think things like this, if just one person finds this interview useful, then great, because this resource wasn't there for me. And social media and a lot of stuff through firms' websites and the internet, there's a lot more information out there for people to read up on what they want to do. But I decided that was my career. I was fortunate enough that during my studies, I secured a training contract conditional on grades. So that was my mind. I had lots of friends that didn't, that were still going through doing their studies and maybe had to work as a paralegal first. And I think that's become more commonplace, although it's not unheard of to go straight to a training contract. But that was sort of how I got into the law. And then the whistle-stop tour of getting from there to equity partner, for me, obviously a lot of hard work. But I liked the firm I'd joined. I saw that it had lots of history behind it, but it had some forward thinking. It had a relatively, as I was coming through, young partnership. There were retirements coming, but they were planned for. There was succession planning in place. It was a firm that was never going to run before it could walk. So there were no crazy world domination plans. But at the same time, it wasn't standing still, and it listened to the views of those coming through. So kind of my career in the direction of the firm kind of came along at the same pace, at the same opportunity. And I stuck here and worked through to equity. I've got lots of friends in law that have taken different routes. This one, for me, it was important to me. I loved this firm. The culture fit, the ethos fit, my views were listened to, and opportunity arose. So lots of things came together. But equally, personally, I always wanted to be a partner, and not for the status of the badge, but for, I enjoyed practicing the law, but I wanted to be involved in running a business. I wanted to be involved in the marketing. I wanted to be involved in managing people and all the other things that come with it. I have other friends, other firms that have no interest in that side of it. They just want to do the job they're trained for, and that's fine. There's a place for everyone, there's a firm for everyone. But for me, I knew this was something I wanted. So yeah, from that 13-year-old going, yeah, I think I want to be a lawyer, who'd watched some criminal law drama. Fast forward, I'm now a commercial property equity partner at a large regional firm. So that's sort of the short version of how I got there, and a lot of finding stuff out of my own back, I think.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's so interesting, like you say, you're so sort of fortunate or whatever to find a firm that was sort of evolving as you wanted to evolve and
Yeah,
in the same way, because that cultural fit goes such a long way, doesn't it? And that, the forward looking and the drive, and that was what you wanted as well. If you can find something, it's like an organization that shares your values, it just goes so
yeah,
far.
yeah,
No,
definitely
fine.
so.
Excellent. And so what do you think then would be the key things, specifically if people were thinking about a career in commercial property? What are the key things that you think people should think about when they're looking at commercial property as an option?
I think for me is understanding why they want to do it, and they may not know why, and that's fine too. At university, I didn't enjoy land law. It's not that I found it difficult. I just didn't enjoy it. It's one of those subjects that was just a bit dull,
It's a bit
and
dry, yes.
yeah, it's very dry. And yet, so if you'd asked me then during those studies, what area of law are you going to practice? Commercial property was not going to be top of the list. But then actually doing it in practice is very different. And the experiences I had here, I knew that actually that was for me. So I think to anyone considering it, if you are put off by it because you didn't enjoy land law or you just don't think it's a topic for you, actually have an open mind. So if you're a trainee going into a seat, be open minded because it will be very different to what you expect. The flip side of that is if you're someone going, I definitely want to do commercial property, I think that's great because it's a fantastic area, but I would just challenge you and say why. What is it about it that appeals to you? Is there a particular thing? And that thing could be the type of commercial property law or client you're acting for, or that thing could be the type of team you're part of. There are lots of different firms. You might prefer being at a smaller firm where you run your own caseload and it's just you. You might have visions of being in a big city firm or being part of a massive team and you're all hands on deck on one project. So you might find a middle ground. So it's understanding what's for you. And I guess where you want to go with it. So, for example, at Wilson Brown, we've got a large commercial property team. We do a variety of work, and it can be anything from people first setting up their first business and their first commercial premises, people acting as a trustee for a charity, or it can be national and international clients that have been dealing with property for years. And it's such a broad mix. I love that variety. Equally, there are firms where you could do something very niche, and your thing could be shopping centre leases or land development or whatever the thing is. And it may well be that you're the type of person that says, look, I don't want to do lots of different things. I want to do this. And this is the thing that excites me. That's fine. Equally, it might be, yes, commercial property is my thing, but I want the variety that comes with it. So I think for anyone looking at commercial property, look at it because it is great. I thoroughly enjoy it, but just sort of challenge yourself along the way to be open-minded, to ask what it is about this you want to do, what you might want to experience, and take whatever opportunities you can, really.
Like you say, it's so different, isn't it? If you have that niche, some of the larger firms, they really do chop the team up into client
Yeah, yeah.
focus or whatever it is. Having that niche or having that wide variety, I would imagine is a very different job, one or the other, so.
100%. And I think also coupled with that, I mentioned at the beginning that part of my wanting to be a partner was being involved in the business development of the firm.
Mm,
Of that, I'm proud of the firm. I'm proud to be out there representing it. But it's not for everyone. I think the modern day lawyer, business development is a massive part of your job. You can't get away from it. It's expected. But equally, the extent of that ties in with what you want to do. It may be that you want to just come in and do the job you train for and be part of a large team where someone else is bringing in the work and you're actually using
mm,
the academic brain to do that bit that you train for. And that's fine. That might be your thing. Equally, you might be someone who wants to go out and win some of that work, be that building your own network and what have you. So there's a place for everyone. I think throughout your studies at university to whatever work experience you get, whether there's a paralegal role in there or not, and through your training is kind of being open-minded, but also trying to, for want of a better phrase, find yourself and see
mm,
where you're
mm,
going to fit and where you want your career to go, because
mm,
you've got to be happy in it. At the end of the day, it's a long old career. So
mm,
finding what type of law, whether it's specialist, whether it's a bit broader, whether you're heavily involved in BD, whether you're part of a larger team, basically how you see your career going. And
mm,
the more you can get to grips with the type of person you are and what you want to be, the easier it will then be for you to navigate a path to say, right, that's how I'm going to get there.
mm, mm,
But it takes time, and so being open-minded is the key part,
mm.
and taking opportunities when they come.
No, definitely. And again, I think, yeah, it's the variety of different sorts of roles within one area like commercial property, because as you say, someone that's, I mean, I've placed partner level into a role where it was simply the focus was business development. We want you to come in and just go
Yeah,
out there and business develop. We don't really mind if you bill. At this stage, we just want you to go out there, drum up the work, build the office. We've got all the people there happy to sit there and do the work. So, go and stir it up and kick it
yeah,
back to the team, and that's a very different job, as you say, to
yeah,
someone that's actually, I really like using my technical knowledge and just sitting
yeah,
here and puzzling over these lease
yeah,
questions or whatever,
yeah,
and getting stuck into that side of it. So yeah,
yeah.
I can totally see that. Is there anything that you see as sort of like the key requirements to making a good commercial property lawyer? What would you say the key skills that you would see probably quite early on, I think, even in someone in the training contract or in a paralegal, and you might look at them and think, oh, do you know what? They could make a good commercial property lawyer.
Yeah, I think there are. I think they probably equally apply across every area of law, if I'm honest. But I
Mm,
think they certainly apply to Comprop. I think they'd apply to others. And that's just, I guess, the way you apply the law. And I always sort of have this that I'll say to trainees, look, the law part can be taught. You've done well to,
mm,
if you're a trainee, you've gone through your degree, you've done your LPC, or you're doing the SQE, or whatever route you've gone down, you're clearly intelligent enough to do that, and you can learn more. And there's lots of resources out there. We use resources, there's lots of stuff, but also the law can be taught.
mm,
The
mm,
way you apply it and your attitude, that's the bit that's harder. And I think the biggest skill set, and this is where I think it's not just solely for commercial property lawyers, I think it's for any lawyer, is knowing how to use that academia and how to interpret the documents, and then ultimately how to advise your client. Because in the
mm,
nicest possible way, the client doesn't really care on how academic a point you raise. What they need to know is, how significant is it, and what are my options for dealing with it? And if there
mm,
are no solutions because it's such a bespoke issue, you should avoid this site at all costs, then fine. They need to understand why and why it's such a big deal. But more often than not, there are ways of working around things. So I think the key skill actually is understanding your client and what their needs are at an early stage, understanding what their sort of non-negotiables are and what things aren't, so that then when you're interpreting documents and providing your advice, you're doing it bespoke to that client.
mm,
You know, we could
mm,
all pick apart a document and find lots of different technical points if we really want to, and it may be that's exactly what the client needs for that scenario. There are other factors at play commercially. So I think that the key skill is being able to understand your client and being able to communicate with them clearly. I
mm,
think different clients will have different styles. You know, as lawyers, of course, we always need a paper trail. You need to have provided the advice clearly, and you need to be able to evidence that you've done so. But you also need to know your client. Is it the client that wants a detailed report because I will go off and sit quietly and read that, leave me to it, I'll come back if I've got a question? Or actually, are they the client that just wants you to talk through stuff over the phone? What are the key drivers or
mm,
highlights? It's understanding what works for your client, and that skill is the bit that actually will set you apart, because all of us in the commercial property field, all of us in the legal field, we've done the study. You know, we're all clearly intelligent enough to have got there. It's then how you apply it, and that's the
mm,
skill. So, like I said, I don't know that that's necessarily bespoke to Comprop, but that for
mm,
me is the key thing.
mm.
Really, is
So,
being able to understand that client and that transaction.
and as you say, really, then it is communication in a way, isn't it, in terms of skill?
100%.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
exactly that. And I think, you know, every client would like every deal done yesterday, unless there's a strategic reason that they need to buy time. Generally, they want it done yesterday,
mm,
understandable.
mm,
Um, and the communication is key. If there's a reason it can't be, or there's something else that needs to be unpicked, a client will naturally be disappointed because they had a timescale in their head, but equally they will understand it. And the more you can keep them involved so that they know what's going on, what's cropped up or
mm,
not, what's
mm,
in our control or what isn't, what they can do to help or not.
mm,
Um, it's that type of thing. And if that communication's flowing throughout, that also builds the trust with the client, which is invaluable
mm,
going forward, you know. So I think that communication side is a real skill. And I think particularly now, as I start to say this and realise I sound really old, but and it's so easy for people to just text. So then I think now there's a generation where it's so easy then to just email. And actually that skill of picking up the phone is one of the hardest things that some, not all by any stretch, but some trainees, when you say, can you ring that person? And you check in and go, did you ring them? Yeah, I emailed them. Sorry, the thing was to pick up the phone. And it's a skill set thing.
Yeah.
So that's also part of it. And sometimes people are busy. There are some clients that just want an email because they're tied up as well. But actually that art of being able to pick up the phone and just talk through with the client and say, look, this is where we're at. This is what's still to happen. This is what's likely to happen next. These are the variables. Taking that client on the journey with you actually will pay dividends.
Absolutely, yeah. It's setting them up, isn't it? Making sure they feel heard, making sure their expectations are set and met, and if things change, you're communicating, all of that. Which, as you say, you some people are happy with that on email, but a lot of people are going to feel a lot more comforted with that on the phone. So I think I'm definitely with you, and I agree. It probably makes it sound old, but you cannot get away from phone work. Being able to communicate on the phone, being able to talk on the phone is needed, and you do gain more. In my role, you gain so much more information. I'm sure it's the same as you, because little things are mentioned, oh yeah, no, it's great, you can do that on that time scale, because actually there's this other thing that we're working to as well, which doesn't have a relevance but will have a relevance, and it's that sort of thing, isn't it? You pick up
also, in a weird way, it can make things quicker, because people think, I can send a quick email, that's quicker than picking up the phone. It is if your question is, do you want option A or option B, or it's a yes or no question. But the stuff that, like you say, in a conversation will naturally come out that the client might not think is important, but it will just ring a bell with you, and you can pick that up with them. On a black and white yes no email won't have come out, or it won't come out till later, and the client's known all along, they just didn't know it was important. You've never directly asked. So exactly that, the conversations just help coax information.
I definitely agree with you on that one. So, I mean, it may simply be sort of the flip side of this, but is there anything in particular that you have seen sort of clash with being a commercial property lawyer? Whether that's sort of personality traits or just ways of working, where you've seen people maybe that wanted to come into it, but it just didn't work for them?
Not necessarily where it didn't work for people. I think the biggest barrier for anyone within Comprop is if you come in with a closed attitude. And by that, I mean, you're obviously not going to pick a career in Comprop and not be open to it. But if you were doing a training contract, for example, and you're rotating your seats in the traditional way, if you're of the view, this isn't for me, and you don't give it a chance, you're never going to see the positives of it. But generally speaking, no, I think everyone I've worked with has always had quite an open mind. I've worked with a lot of people where their eyes have been opened during the seat, and they'll say towards the end that this is completely different to what I expected. I've enjoyed this. There's more to it. I didn't really appreciate what it was. I think more so the clash you sometimes see is in other parties' solicitors, because as much as you can plan your career and who you work for and the type of deal you do, you have no control over who the other side are going to instruct. And I think sometimes you'll see in correspondence, you'll spot a lawyer on the other side and think, you really wanted to be a litigator, didn't you? Like, telling me that you really like arguing. And I think my approach is always, we've got our own respective clients to act for, and we've got to act in their best interests completely. And sometimes you'll need to be firmer in correspondence, and I completely get that. But actually, our respective clients want the same end goal. Because by the time the lawyer's involved, they've agreed heads of terms. They know where they want to get to. Yes, we've got to act in their interests and protect their interests. But that communication thing we spoke about with clients is just as important with the other side. Sometimes you'll be negotiating and drafting a document, and that's fine, but it may come to a point where you just need to talk through there might be one particular point of all the 10 that actually you don't quite get where the other side's coming from, and a conversation can help that. Just to understand where you're coming from, because you want the same end goal. But sometimes you'll get people and you think, you just wanted to be a litigator. But actually, shouting loudly or re-emphasizing a point without any movement or any discussion, not actually helping your client either. Point great because the other side don't get it. Have a chat with them. Point out what it is that you missed, and work together, because actually that's what our clients want at the end of the day.
like you
deal
say,
done.
it's yes, the same end goal, which is deal
Yeah,
done, isn't it? So let's
yeah,
just get there,
absolutely.
you know. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, fine, fine. And again, picking up the phone goes a long
Yes,
way, doesn't it? So
so, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, fine. What would you say then, over the course of your career, what would you say have been the key developments in commercial property? What things have really changed, sort of from when you maybe got that first insight in your training contract and thought, yeah, maybe I could do this? How did commercial property differ then to what it is now? You know, is there anything major that's changed in that time, do you think?
Yeah, I think the main one, and again, it's a bit like the career in commercial property question. It may not be purely bespoke to Comprop. I think it's across all areas, but certainly I've seen it in commercial property, and that's, I guess, the advances in technology. And
Sure.
and and by that, I don't even mean anything as deep as AI or anything like that. I just, the pace with which technology's changed. I remember doing my training contract, and yes, okay, there were emails, but they weren't at the volume they are now.
Mm,
Fax was still very much a thing, and post was the main thing. And when I worked with my old training supervisor in my property seat, he would literally have a post tray, and if he was giving me a piece of work, he'd pick something out of that post tray and give it to me, and
mm,
that would be my
mm,
next task. Where and then you kind of, faxes became more and more, and then it's moved to email, and now the volume of that is, it's just a different way of working. And again, the communication side is how you manage that volume. But then fast forward to now, and certainly coming through COVID, was the uptake in kind of Teams and
mm,
Zoom and
mm,
a conference like this. It's just changed the way commercial property is dealt with. I mean, on a development deal, you'll often have lots of parties involved, and if you got to a point where actually we need a roundtable meeting to sort out this issue,
mm,
coordinating diaries and working out where you're going to meet, and so and so's based in London and someone's up north and we're here, and should we meet in Birmingham, and can we do it 3 months time because everyone's so busy. Whereas now, pretty much within the week, if not within the day, there's a thorny issue, we need everyone together, can we jump on a video call? Yeah, and
mm,
everyone's there.
mm,
And
mm.
it's just a different way of working. That's made transactions quicker. So there's different things that change. The volume of email, I think any lawyer, anyone in any profession would say that is a
Mm,
burden because everything's so instant. But then something like this technology that enables you to just meet with your client or all parties just there and then,
mm,
that's
mm.
fantastic.
Invaluable, yeah, yeah.
So I think it has changed a lot in the time I've been here, mainly because of the way technology's changed, and it will continue to do so. I think the key thing is moving with it, um, and being open to that change. No, human nature is people generally don't like change. And whether it's a system update or something internally here, there'll always be someone grumble and go, "Oh, but I like what was going before." And then within a few days of using the new system, that's fine because it's just habit,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's being open to those changes and being aware of what's coming. And with a partner hat on, we're blessed. We've got an incredible in-house IT team.
Mm, mm,
They're ready for changes as and when they come. It wasn't that many years ago when data rooms or file drops or anything like that weren't that common.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and you have to move with the times. And equally, it wasn't that long ago where we'd have deals on where you'd have someone on the other side and you'd send them stuff by way of file drop and say, "Oh, we can't download this. Can you send us hard copies?" And obviously for that deal to move it forward, you're not going to say no because you're not going to hinder your own client. But at the same time, you think, "Oh, we do need to move forward.
mm,
Everyone
mm.
needs to get together." So I think that's the biggest change. There are changes in law. I think, for commercial property, there's probably less of a change than if you did an area like, say, employment law or something, which
Sure.
is,
Yeah, all the time changing, yeah.
there are things that are changing. And I think the nature of how it changes, you can see it at different times. There might be a change in case law or legislation that changes the way you draft. And then
Mm,
you'll come to a renewal of a lease you did 10 years prior, and you think, "Oh, crap, that's completely different." Yeah, but actually at that time, that was the working practice.
mm,
Now,
mm.
modernisation, it's slightly different. So you see that evolution as well.
I suppose
Uh,
that's the thing with property is that you may leave things a very long time in between looking at them, like leases and that
yeah,
sort of thing. It's not day-to-day management of it necessarily, is it? It's long periods of time. So I guess, you know, you can look at it and it feels like it was something that was quite active, but actually it was last drafted many years ago, in fact. Yeah.
And I think it's that I remember as a trainee sometimes dealing with kind of renewals where the firm had dealt previously, and partners at the time would say, look, it's renewal, but you need to start again with a modern precedent.
Mm,
And,
mm,
trainee people can go, but what was wrong with that lease? We drafted it. Can't we just do renewal by reference or whatever? Just surely it's fine. We did it. And then, I look at this stage of my career now and go, no, I completely get it. Because actually I
yeah.
look at a lease that's even 5 years old, let alone 10, 15, and you go,
Mm,
no, there are so many changes where
mm.
things have gone, and that comes with experience that you see
Think,
those changes through.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, things shift slowly, but then if you add them all up over the years, suddenly everything's
Exactly that.
changed, isn't it? I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, fine, fine. And so I guess almost same question, but for the future, what do you think then, if you could look, 5, 10, I don't know, 20 years into the future, what do you think will be the key changes in commercial property?
I think the reality is technology will continue to evolve. And
Mm,
what I purposely steered clear of AI on the last question, I think it does tie in on this one,
mm,
particularly because a lot of younger lawyers and even students that will reach out for advice will say, well, how's AI going to impact the role of a lawyer? And I
mm,
think in commercial property, there's a lot of stuff that is heavily precedent driven. So there could be an evolution of the involvement in AI there. And we've seen it as well. There are different products out there on the reporting side to pull
mm,
information from searches. And the way I look at it, and I think anyone in commercial property, anyone in law generally needs to look at it, is this is all about efficiencies. This isn't about replacing the lawyer, but
mm,
things move on. Costs for any business are spiraling constantly.
mm,
Are we as lawyers keeping up at that rate? No, we're not. If we've got costs for certain things going up 30%, are we sticking that on our bill? No, we're not, because we just wouldn't get the work. So
mm,
therefore, okay, what efficiencies are there? And I think AI will form part of that. But whatever AI does, whether that's in drafting or reporting, and it's got a long way to go, but I think it will happen, it won't replace the role of the lawyer. And just as one of the earlier questions about roles in commercial property and what's the key skill, the key skill remains communication. All of that stuff,
mm.
yes, it may be that AI will do slightly more of it than we do now, but the bit the client's actually paying for is the practical advice. The bit they're
Yeah.
paying for is the communication, is understanding, all right, that's lovely, whether you type that yourself or a computer generated it, what does it mean for me? What are the bits I need to be concerned about? How's this going to play out for me in the short to long term? I
Mm,
told you at the outset, these are my goals. How are you going to make it happen? And
mm,
that's where we add value as lawyers, particularly in commercial property, is
mm,
providing that commercial advice and practical solutions. That's not going to change. So I think
mm,
that will probably be one of the biggest changes or things that will keep evolving. But I would say to all kind of younger lawyers coming through, don't be afraid of it, embrace it, look at the efficiencies it can bring,
mm.
and then value what you bring to the table alongside it. So work with it rather than bunkering down and going, it will never be a thing and we don't need it. Well, why? Probably it's not there yet. So I sort of agree. There's been lots of resources out there and precedents where there'll be like a fast draft facility and you can answer a few questions and it'll generate stuff. And they've evolved over time. They've never been particularly great. They will continue to improve.
Mm, mm,
Shy away from stuff. What stuff can be done that will make you more efficient, which will in turn benefit your
mm.
client because it will stop cost spiraling? And actually, what bits do you still need to do and
Yeah.
value that in it? So I think that will be the biggest change. There'll always be changes in legislation. There'll always be case law that crops up and completely flips how you deal with a particular element in a lease, and every comprop lawyer will then stand there in blind panic and go, it's never happened before. We're all tracking the same thing. It will always evolve.
Mm,
Um, so I think a lot will continue to change. The biggest thing from me is to just embrace that.
mm, mm. Well, it's like you said, isn't it? If you were still embracing that in tray with the post in it every morning and, no, this is how we do it. This is, it's like where would you be, And so it does evolve and there is good parts of it. And the key is to make sure you're adding value on top of that, which is what you're saying, that you're giving the client more than that. The AI is never going to take the client, hold their hand and get the deal done. They can't do
Yeah,
that bit.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, no, fab, fab. Excellent. Well, thanks for your time. That was just really interesting to
Yeah,
go through all of that. I think it's just such good insight, whether people are right at the beginning of their career, wondering what to do. I mean, I definitely agree. I've spoken to so many people who, land law does not set you up for commercial property. You know, the reality of it is very different. So
yeah,
changing perceptions. And I'm always the same, telling people to go in, you know, to any seat just with an open mind, gain the experience, sort of take it for what it is, don't prejudge it, and then make decisions. You know, I think that's so important. And then yeah, look at the scope within it, because you know, one role in one firm is not the same as another role in another firm, and you
yeah.
know, there's lots of levels in between. So yeah, but no, that's great. Thanks for coming online and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. It's very helpful.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
No problem. Take care.